again, that like after he slides from the 4th to the 6th fret on the B string, adds some vibrato. Then he slides kind of from around the 9th fret area on the G string down to the 5th fret. So it's kind of like a gray slide. It doesn't matter where you initially pick, as long as you land on that 5th fret. And there again, it's back to kind of the G minor blues scale kind of thinking. It slides down that 5th fret, slides up and down from the 5th to the 6th, back to the 5th on the G string, and pulls off to the 3rd fret. Again, now if you're thinking in the key of C minor at that point, that would be some kind of altered scale, because he's sliding from the root to the 2nd, or to the flat 2nd, if you're thinking C. So that's where I'm thinking it's back in G. It's kind of like a quick blues progression, going from this G minor to C minor, back to G minor. So again, that whole section is on the G string. You basically slide down to the 5th fret, slide back up and down to the 6th fret, back to the 5th fret, pull off to the 3rd fret, play the 5th fret on, and again, all on the G string. Then you go down to the 5th fret of the D string to the 3rd fret of the G string and slide up to the 5th fret of the G string. So slowly that whole thing is. And again, he's really getting that punchy, kind of plucky sound by when he plays that note back down to the 5th fret on the D string. And again, that 3rd fret is really plucking that. And this is, after that, he does kind of a little pivot kind of thing. From that 5th fret G string to the 8th fret of the B string, back to the 5th fret G string, to the 6th fret of the B string. So, and then he slides that up to the 8th fret, from the 6th fret to the 8th fret on the B string. So that whole thing slow is. And then he plays the 8th fret of the E string. So this is where he gets into that legato-y kind of thing. It's more 2-note per string kind of pull-offs with an arpeggio thrown in there. But he starts off with on the flat 5. So it's the 7th fret to the 8th fret, back to the 7th fret and the 6th fret on the B string. It's all hammer-ons and pull-offs. Then you go to the G string and you pull off from the 8th fret to the 5th fret. Then you do a little kind of pivot thing from the 5th fret on the G string to the 6th fret on the B string, back to the 5th fret on the G string. So then you hammer on and pull off the. Actually, I pick that the next note, which is the 8th fret on the G string, pull off to the 5th fret of the G string. So then the same pattern, the 8th fret to the 5th fret on the D string. So then you hammer on from the 6th fret to the 8th fret on the D string to the 5th fret of the D string. I'm sorry, that was the A string, 6th fret to 8th fret, and the D string, 5th fret. So that whole thing is. This is where he goes down an arpeggio. So it's a C minor arpeggio from 5th fret of the D string to the 6th fret of the A string to the 8th fret of the E string. So I'm sorry. And that whole thing is, and then he pulls off to the 6th fret. On the E string, it's the 8th fret to the 6th fret. Then he slides from the 8th fret to the 9th fret on the A string, pulls off to the 6th fret of the A string, plays the 8th fret of the E string, and slides up from the 8th fret to the 10th fret on the D string. So that whole thing is, and again, that's your typical blues thing from but then he does a cool little thing that I didn't notice until after transcribing this. The next section actually is the part that kind of tweaked my ear, which was the octave thing. That whole section. But what he does before that, when he does that lick, he does this thing where he, again, it's this little subtlety thing that you don't really detect, but it's very cool. He bends that last note, which is the root note, the C, and then he slides it, he bends it up like a quarter tone or half, or a little less than a quarter tone, and then he quickly slides into the next fret and back down. So he's bending it. Say he does bend it up a quarter step, or I mean a half step. Then he slides up that half step and back down. Well, he did that at the end. I didn't realize he did it there also, but it's a very cool little trick. So then he gets into this octave part of the lick, which was what initially caught my ear, because again, a lot of times he'll do legato runs, then he'll throw in some chromatic notes, then he'll do arpeggios, and he's mixing all that in this one continuous legato run. But anytime you break into wider intervals after doing something like that, it really, catches your attention. There's a lot of people that do it. I'll go over a few little ideas. Steve Vai does this a lot. There's a lot of people that, Eric Johnson and all that kind of stuff. But this little octave idea basically starts on the 8th fret of the D string, or I'm sorry, the 8th fret of the A string at the F note, and then he just jumps up 2 strings to the G string on the 10th fret, which is the octave, the F. And he gets a lot of pop going in this lick, like plucking of the strings. Again, he has the volume pretty high up, I think. I'm not sure if he uses a compressor or not. But whatever it is, he's getting a lot of pop, and with his fingers, the chicken picking. It has a lot to do with the muting of the strings too, because if you play this lick without muting it, as opposed to if you mute it, you get a lot of that, the staccato thing, and that really helps with that popping effect, kind of. Anyway, so again, it's the 8th fret A string to the 10th fret of the G string. Then he does another. Then he goes up to a fourth from that initial F note to the B flat note, the 8th fret on the D string. So it's, and slides that up to the 10th fret. So 8 to 10 on the D string. And then he plays another octave, the C note, on the B string, the 13th fret. So it's, and then he does a little pivot thing from that C note back down to that C note again, but an octave down on the 10th fret D string. and then he plays the B flat note on the B string, 11th fret. So it's, and then he hammers on. He does a little lick between these three notes: the C, the B flat, and the G flat. I'm sorry, the A flat. But so he hammers back onto that C note. So it's 11th fret to 13th fret, pull off to 9th fret. So. And then this is where he does the fourths idea kind of again. He goes from the 10th fret of the D string to the 10th fret of the G string. So. And again, if you're seeing all this in the C minor pentatonic pattern, I mean, those notes are. Except for this note, everything's in the C minor pentatonic. Again, that's in the minor pentatonic. So anyway, again, I see all these. I generally see the pentatonic stuff. This isn't maybe the wisest way to go about it for a lot of people, but for me, I see the pentatonic shapes. I break those into, I see the arpeggio shapes, the chord tones, and then I start seeing the outside notes and realizing, you know, what are natural minor, what are major notes, what are major minor thirds. I do a lot of interval things in my head. Everybody sees things differently, and that's just the way I see it, which is based off of pentatonic, major or minor pentatonic.